The voicemail was like a sledgehammer through glass. I stared at my phone, pulse racing, hands trembling. It couldn't be. Not after all this time. Marissa, hey, it's Declan. I'm back in town tonight and thought maybe I could crash at our place. We should talk. Our place. The nerve. I drew a ragged breath, gripping the countertop to steady myself. 3 years of rebuilding my life alone, brick by painful brick. 3 years of providing for our daughter while he gallivanted to find himself. And now he thought he could just waltz right back in? Mom, you okay? I blinked hard. Elise stood watching me cautiously, backpack slung over one small shoulder. I managed a shaky smile. Yeah, sweetheart. Go on, or you'll be late. After she left, I sagged against the refrigerator, waves of nausea and anger crashing over me. This wasn't happening. Not now, when Elise and I finally had stability. When I finally felt whole again. I replayed his message. Bile rising. Make some space for me. Unbelievable. What about the space he'd left in our lives when he abandoned his family? When he disappeared without warning or child support? Did he expect me to forget so easily? To pretend our years of hardship hadn't happened? My hands curled into fists as tears burned my eyes. I swiped them away roughly. No. I was done crying over that man. I'd spent too many nights consoling our daughter when she asked where Daddy was, why he didn't love us anymore. Too many days working 2 jobs just to keep us afloat, selling memories to pay for groceries. My knuckles whitened, the anguish and self-doubt I'd endured when he vanished without explanation. It had nearly destroyed me. But Elise had needed me, so I'd carried on. Alone and exhausted, but carrying on nonetheless. And slowly, the wounds began to heal. The nights grew easier, my daughter's laughter more frequent. I gazed around my tidy kitchen, summoning the resolve that had held us together all this time. No, I would not let Declan unravel everything now. Not when we'd finally found stable ground. He gave up the right to be part of our lives long ago. I reached for the phone with quiet determination, deleted his message. Then I blocked his number. Whatever he wanted, neither Elise nor I owed him a moment more of our time or sanity. The past was done. I had a PTA meeting to plan for, parent conferences next week. A little girl who needed me focused and fully present. I straightened my shoulders, that familiar strength rooting into my bones once more. I slid the casserole into the oven, forehead creased in thought. Elise perched at the table coloring, ponytail bobbing as she hummed. Watching her, the familiar ache bloomed in my chest. She was the mirror image of Declan, those wide, dark eyes, the spray of freckles across her nose. Even her mannerisms echoed his, down to the way she chewed her lip when concentrating. My jaw tightened. He should be here sharing this scene, not off chasing self-serving dreams while his daughter grew up without a father. I'd spent endless hours listening to Elise wonder why Daddy didn't tuck her in at night or attend her school plays and piano recitals. Why he didn't want us anymore. When will Daddy visit? She'd asked endlessly those first bleak years, her small face etched with confusion. Doesn't he love me? And I could only gather her close, choking back angry tears as I whispered platitudes and smoothed her hair. Because how could I explain that her beloved father had thrown us aside without warning, that he'd left us drowning under a tidal wave of bills, our accounts bone dry? I still recalled removing her from ballet class in tears because the payments had become impossible. The shame and despair of those days haunted me. Yet despite it all, Elise's innocent faith in Declan persisted. Night after night, she'd gaze at the stars, making fervent wishes for his return. My heart fractured a little more with each tiny prayer. And now here he was, waltzing back as if no time had passed, acting as if he deserved access to our lives. I gritted my teeth, fury and bitterness roiling through me. What gave him the right after all the unanswered calls and attorney's letters demanding child support, which he'd ignored completely? Did he comprehend even an ounce of the agony he'd put us through? Elise glanced up just then, grinning broadly as she held up her drawing. Look, Mommy, it's you and me, and Daddy. Do you think he'll come visit for Christmas? My stomach twisted at the hope glowing from her sweet face. Gathering my composure with effort, I managed a tense smile. We'll have to wait and see, love. Now, want to help stir the corn? As she trailed behind me eagerly to the stove, I squared my shoulders with quiet resolve. Declan may believe he could resurrect his role as husband and father on a whim, but I would not stand by and let him trample our healing hearts again. I woke with a start, momentarily confused by the pre-dawn light filtering through the blinds. Then the memories came flooding back. Declan's message. His audacity after all this time. I groaned, scrubbing at my gritty eyes with the heels of my hands. Despite my exhaustion, sleep had eluded me most of the night. My mind kept voice conjuring emotions I thought I'd firmly buried. Anger, disbelief, the sting of that old betrayal. Sometime near dawn, I must have finally drifted off, too spent for my churning thoughts to keep at bay any longer. But now morning had arrived, heralding the start of another day I'd have to battle recurring ghosts. I dragged myself from bed, wincing at the throbbing behind my temples. In the muted light, I studied my reflection as I dressed for work. The drawn face staring back evoked the battered young woman I'd been in the aftermath of Declan's abandonment. The one who had cried herself to sleep for months, struggling to provide for a heartbroken little girl despite the yawning abyss where my savings used to be. I'd walked a tortuous road to regain my footing after he left. I couldn't resurrect that buried anguish now. Wouldn't. In the kitchen, I braced my hands against the smooth countertop, gathering my resolve. When Declan split, I'd eventually pick myself up and put one determined foot in front of the other until I could stand tall again. I owed it to myself and Elise to keep marching forward, not get dragged backwards by my ex-husband's latest whim. As I filled travel mugs with coffee, fury simmered through my veins. How dare he presume to still have any place in our lives? To believe he could breeze in and out whenever it suited him with no thought to those left scraping up the wreckage? No, I refused to permit it. Not this time. If Declan imagined he'd receive anything besides cold resentment from me, then reality would give him a brisk wake-up call. I would cordially inform him once that he'd extinguished any rights as a husband or father long ago. The aftermath was his mess to wade through. Elise wandered sleepy-eyed into the kitchen just then, her dark curls riotous. I smoothed them gently, heart clenching at her sweetness as I pressed a bowl of cereal into her hands. Whatever Declan's reasons for returning, I bore responsibility now for shielding my daughter from additional hurt. She'd endured enough confusion and disappointment already. This time I would guard the fragile new life we'd built, fortified by hard-won wisdom and resolve. Let Declan make his excuses elsewhere. When it came to my family, the door was firmly closed. I slid the key into the lock, balancing a bag of groceries on one hip. As the door swung open, I froze. There was Declan, sprawled on my living room sofa as if he belonged there. Watching TV and drinking a beer like this was any regular Tuesday night. The bag thudded to the floor. Declan glanced over, irritation flashing across his face. "Hey, careful with the bruise. Get out," I hissed through gritted teeth. Inside, emotions churned violently. "You have no right to be here." With exaggerated calm, Declan killed the TV and arched an eyebrow. "Is that any way to greet your husband after 3 years?" "Ex-husband," I spat. "Or did you miss the divorce paperwork while you were off finding yourself? Now get out before I call the police." Declan had the audacity to appear wounded. "Come on, Marissa. Can't we talk about this civilly? I've missed you two." A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "Missed us? Is that what you call completely abandoning your family? Refusing to help provide for your daughter even after the court-mandated child support?" Red-hot anger licked through me when he merely shrugged. I was in a tough financial spot myself, trying to get my business off the ground. And that justified leaving Elise and I destitute? My voice shook. For us to struggle just to survive while you gallivanted around pursuing your dreams? Declan's nonchalant mask slipped at the verbal slap, eyes narrowing dangerously. "Watch it, Marissa," he warned, crossing his arms. "You're one to talk anyway. Didn't take you long to replace me, now did it?" "Get out," I repeated through clenched teeth. I trembled with the urge to claw that smug expression off his face. "Whatever pathetic reasons you've conjured to explain abandoning your family, I don't want to hear them. It's too late. You're dead to us." Declan shot to his feet then, features twisting. For an instant, I thought he might get violent and tensed. But after a seething moment, he seemed to get himself under control. "You can play hardball all you want, but I'm back for good," he snarled. "We're still married in the eyes of God, even if you decided to throw away our sacred vows. Don't think this is over." He stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I jumped before sagging back against the wall, shaking all over. My pulse roared in my ears. This was bad. Declan had never handled not getting his way well, and by his behavior just now, he intended to make things very ugly before he gave up again. I had to protect Elise. Bereft of immediate options, I could only slide to the floor in front of the bolted door, head in hands. The peaceful life I'd rebuilt from ashes was crumbling before my eyes. And this time, I feared Declan himself posed the greatest threat to my daughter's well-being. I ushered Elise into the apartment, scanning the rooms cautiously. My spine prickled as I secured deadbolts and flipped lights, peering into shadowy corners, but the rooms appeared untouched. In the kitchen, I checked the locks on the back door and windows, pulse thrumming. Declan still had a key, and his words keep echoing through my mind. We're still married in God's eyes. This isn't over. A noise made me whirl. Elise hovered at the fridge, features pinched. Mom, what's going on? Why are you acting so weird? It's nothing, sweetie. I attempted a reassuring smile that felt more like a grimace. A worried 8-year-old didn't need to know her father had basically threatened us. Not yet, anyway. I started dinner preparations, jaw tight. Declan's reappearance had cracked open the fault lines I thought healed over. The security I'd rebuilt for Elise now threatened to crumble thanks to him barreling back in, all arrogant entitlement instead of remorse for his absence. After demolishing grilled cheese sandwiches, Elise wandered off to finish homework, subdued. My chest tightened watching her go. She'd already endured enough disappointment where her father was concerned. She deserved consistency and stability now, not Declan's melodrama and empty promises. As I washed up the supper dishes, resolve hardened my spine. Elise came first, period. For 3 years, I'd mastered that balance alone. Now the stakes were higher, but my commitment hadn't wavered. I would fiercely protect the peaceful life we'd carved out, even if confronting Declan's toxicity was inevitable to secure our safety. Right on cue, an insistent knock rattled the front door. I squared my shoulders and stalked through the living room as fury kindled in my chest. Tonight, Declan would receive his final warning. Either stay away for good or force my hand against him legally to guarantee Elise's well-being. I wrenched open the door, angry words dying on my lips. Declan sagged against the doorframe, clutching a mostly empty bottle of Jack Daniels. Behind him, the front yard was strewn with our overturned trash cans, contents scattered across dead grass. My heart sank at the spiteful spectacle. His bloodshot gaze raked over me, features twisting into an ugly sneer. "Hey there, gorgeous," he slurred. "Gonna invite your husband in for a drink?" His cackling laughter raised the hair on my arms. Disgust and alarm warred through me at his deteriorated state. Declan had always been a mean drunk, but this went beyond rational behavior. Had his years away unraveled him completely? Over his hulking shoulder, I registered our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Tavers, peering wide-eyed from her cracked door down the hall. Heart in my throat, I blocked Declan's lurching entry with my shoulder. "You need to leave," I warned sharply. "Now, before I call the police." His hand shot out, shoving me hard. I stumbled backwards with a gasp as he bowled his way inside, bottle dangling from one fist. Mrs. Tavers hastily shut her door. Declan invaded my space, liquor fumes and unhinged fury burning from him. "Get Elise. We're going home." I retreated slowly toward the kitchen, pulse thundering. No way would I let this monster near my daughter tonight. The baseball bat still leaned just inside the pantry. If persuasion failed, I knew with sudden cool clarity I would use it without hesitation. "Get back," I warned, fingers wrapped tightly around the bat's handle. Declan blinked slowly, swaying, his lip curled when he registered the weapon. "Gonna take a swing at me, Riss? Didn't peg you as the violent type." I angled my chin defiantly. "I'll do what it takes to protect my daughter. Now leave." His mocking grin faded. Belligerence hardened his eyes. "I told you we're going home. As a family." He took a threatening step forward. Outrage spiked through me. "We stopped being a family when you abandoned us." Declan roared and hurled the Jack Daniels bottle. I ducked instinctively and it exploded against the wall, amber liquid raining down. "Don't you dare speak to me that way," he bellowed, spraying spittle. "Ungrateful after everything I did for you." He lunged then. I swung wildly with the bat, the hollow thwack of solid wood connecting with flesh and bone echoing through the chaotic room. Declan stumbled sideways with a garbled shout, crashing into the upended kitchen table. Chest heaving, I clutched the bat in trembling hands. Sick adrenaline flooded my system at having struck him. But the darkened glint in Declan's eyes as he dragged himself upright spurred only stark purpose: protect Elise at all costs. I darted into the hallway, intent on barricading us in my bedroom. But Elise stood frozen outside her room, features white with shock above the rumpled unicorn tee she still hadn't outgrown. Behind me, Declan roared incoherently. "Get back inside," I urged her desperately. She remained rooted in place, tears rising. "Why is Daddy so angry? Why did you hit him?" Her small voice quavered with confusion and fear. I grabbed her shoulders, my own vision blurring fast. "Oh, baby, I'm sorry. Daddy isn't well right now. I had to get her to safety. Everything will be all right, but you need to." Enraged bellowing shredded the rest of my plea. Elise's eyes rounded in dismay a split second before I felt myself airborne. We crashed excruciatingly into the linen closet doors. My head ricocheted off unforgiving drywall and stars exploded across my vision. I slumped in dazed agony, ears ringing. Somewhere through the nauseating haze I heard Elise shrieking. I struggled to sit up, gaping through swelling eye sockets at Declan's hulking form stomping toward my cringing daughter. "No!" I choked out through the inferno raging inside my skull. Elise backpedaled swiftly into her room, but Declan caught her door before it slammed shut. I dragged my leaden body across the carpet, screaming her name. Declan reappeared, massive hand engulfing the back of Elise's neck as she sobbed wildly. "We're leaving!" He spat, face mottled and nose gushing crimson down his scruffy chin. He looked unhinged and dangerous at a cellular level. "Should have come willingly." Through the neighbors shouting and Elise hysterical pleas for me, icy resolve solidified, eclipsing everything else. I would not lose my daughter tonight. If stopping Declan meant killing him with my bare hands, then so be it. "Marissa Walsh?" I glanced up from the forms the nurse had given me. 2 officers stood in the doorway, the same pair who'd responded when Declan tried kidnapping Elise. I straightened gingerly. "Yes?" Beside me, Elise eyed them warily from beneath an ice pack as she clutched my hand. "Sorry to intrude. We apprehended your ex attempting to break into your apartment again. He'd managed to pick the back lock. Claims the place still belongs to him." I pressed trembling fingers to my lips, pulse spiking. Elise huddled closer with a whimper. My mouth went dry. "What happens now?" The officers traded looks. "Unfortunately, since his name is still on the lease, we can't charge him with breaking and entering. But we brought him in for the outstanding warrant regarding the assault and attempted kidnapping incident." My knees went loose. No immediate reprieve from Declan's harassment even with him jailed? It wasn't remotely fair or just. I scooped Elise close as she started crying softly. The officers shifted, pained empathy plain on their faces. "We know it's not ideal," the younger one offered quietly, "but our hands are tied legally from keeping him away for good, unless—" His gaze cut to Elise's battered face and anger flashed across his youthful features. "Look, the judge set Declan's bail prohibitively high, and we notified CPS about your daughter's condition, plus the previous child support non-compliance." He hesitated. "I probably shouldn't say this, but we also conducted a thorough search of that apartment after arresting your ex. Let's just state that he won't be making bail anytime soon." A violent tremor ripped through me. Whatever contraband they'd uncovered didn't matter. Only guaranteeing Elise's safety from this monster counted now. I focused dully on the officers' solemn faces. "What should we do? Declan made threats about coming after us again. Can you stop him?" Their grave expressions reflected what I already knew deep down, that the legal system could only constrain someone like my ex-husband for so long. Sooner or later he'd charm his way free again, and next time he might successfully spirit Elise away forever. A bone-deep wariness engulfed me. I'd devoted years to painstakingly rebuilding security for my daughter after Declan's shattering betrayal. Now, despite police intervention and restraining orders, his abuse and manipulation still dominated our lives from behind bars. I tuned back in as the officers offered platitudes about changing the locks and extra patrols near our apartment until Declan's case went to trial. My fingers curled protectively through Elise's baby-fine hair, worthless stopgaps when dealing with a narcissist like my ex. As they left, I kissed Elise's damp cheek, voice unwavering. This ends now, baby girl. Let's go pack. I won't risk him finding us again. Leaving everything familiar behind meant nothing if it secured her safety. I would burn cities to ash first before letting Declan destroy Elise's life further. 6 months later. Name? I met the bored gaze of the station guard evenly. Marissa Walsh, and my daughter Elise. A flicker of interest crossed the woman's face. Message received. She remembered the high-profile case. Sign here. I'll buzz you in. Elise shifted nervously, confusion and curiosity playing across her delicate features beneath summer freckles as we were escorted inside. I gave her a gentle, reassuring squeeze. My heels clicked decisively across the grimy tile, syncing with the thunderous cadence of my pulse. Anticipation and simmering rage kindled with every step nearer to the secure visitation room. Declan's sentencing was today on multiple charges, from kidnapping to possession with intent to distribute. The fastidious search of our old apartment had unveiled a cornucopia of illicit substances and dealings. The officers who'd tipped me off about the contraband discoveries had advised us not to attend the trial given the volatility. But I needed closure. Elise, too, though she didn't fully understand that yet. I'd shielded her these months from Declan's continued threats and maneuverings. Instead, I'd channeled frantic energy into moving us cross-country, into my brother's guest room back east while I slowly rebuilt stability again. But before leaving that chaotic former life forever, Elise and I deserved finality. So I'd made arrangements to see Declan one last time on his way to sentencing, to make certain he grasped the damage inflicted and pain caused were irrevocable, that his poison could never taint our future happiness, if I had any say. The guard ushered us into a small room empty except for a grimy table and plastic chairs. Elise eyed me uncertainly. I managed an encouraging wink just as the door reopened. Flanked by 2 impassive guards, Declan shuffled inside. His contemptuous bravado had evaporated between the damning evidence and prospect of hard time. He seemed diminished in his orange jumpsuit, face at once familiar and that of a defeated stranger. Exactly how I wanted him. I rose slowly. Behind me, Elise fidgeted, anxiety rolling off her. I nodded once at Declan but addressed my daughter gently. It's okay, sweetheart. We're just here to say goodbye before they take him away for a long time. Declan blanched. I skewered him with smoldering satisfaction, letting venom etch my words. Did you want to tell Daddy why we're leaving him forever? When Elise just peered at the floor miserably, I stepped forward, eyes blazing. Well then, let me do the honors. I proceeded to clinically detail every vile deed and repercussion, reveling in Declan's shrinking frame. I spoke Elise's pain, my terror, and destitution. By the end, Declan appeared utterly extinguished. I leaned in, breath hot on his pallid cheek. She's free of you, they both are. I kissed Elise's hair, breathing in her goodness and light, before spinning sharply away. Behind me, Declan sputtered useless protests, truly a master of nothing any longer. I strode into sunshine without a backwards glance, Elise's small hand tucked firmly inside mine.
Thank you for looking after our little one for the past week. I'll be picking him up today. What? We weren't home. Sophia's sister-in-law's voice on the other end of the line sounded shaken. Wait, where is my son right now? Sophia's concern spiked. My name is Sophia, a 34-year-old stay-at-home mom. I've been married to John for 4 years. Last year, we moved in with John's parents to help care for his dad, Matthew, who was struggling with his legs, and his mom, Victoria, who became his primary caregiver. We thought it would be too much for Victoria to handle both housework and caregiving, so John and I offered to move in. At first, they were hesitant, but eventually welcomed the idea. John's brother, James, works for a global company and is currently abroad on business. That's why John, being the younger son, felt it was his responsibility to stay close to his parents and initiated the move. Living in my in-laws' house, I had no complaints. Victoria always appreciated my cooking and help with chores. They treated me kindly, and I always felt serene in their presence. John has always been kind-hearted, much like his parents. Living together was enjoyable until tragedy struck. Matthew's health deteriorated, and he passed away at the hospital. His death deeply affected Victoria and John. We held a funeral where many people attended, including James, who came back from abroad. John, Sophia, thank you for taking on so much responsibility as the eldest son. James expressed his gratitude during the difficult time. I should have been the one to stay with Dad. Don't worry about it, bro. Your job overseas is important. That's right. I found happiness living with Matthew and Victoria. Thanks, both of you. I have to head back to my assignment, so please continue to look after Mom. James expressed gratitude before leaving, clearly feeling bad about not being more involved. He seemed sorry for not participating in household affairs after Matthew's passing. Despite James's departure, we continued living with Victoria, not just because he asked us to, but out of genuine concern for her well-being now that she was alone. Victoria appeared deeply saddened since the funeral, and both John and I were cautious in our interactions with her, not wanting to overwhelm her. We carried on as usual, being attentive to her needs. Gradually, Victoria started feeling better. Thanks, both of you. I'm okay now. Sorry for worrying you, she said, smiling warmly. Both John and I were relieved to see Victoria back to her old self. From then on, the three of us lived peacefully as a family. However, a new source of tension emerged in the form of Olivia, my brother-in-law's wife. Hello, looking forward to another great day, she would say, dropping off her son Alexander frequently. Alexander was a well-behaved 5-year-old, and Olivia believed leaving him with us would be a good distraction for Victoria, who had recently lost Matthew. While Victoria enjoyed spending time with her grandchild, Olivia's constant dropping off of Alexander became exhausting. Olivia claimed she couldn't take care of him during her part-time weekend work, insisting that Victoria, now free from caregiving responsibilities, should accommodate him. Although Olivia's assertion wasn't entirely wrong, it didn't make it acceptable for her to impose her child on us without considering our plans. I wonder why she doesn't work during the weekdays when Alexander is at preschool. That way, she could pick him up after work. It's puzzling. Do you think my brother knows about this? I mean, if he's in a global company, does she even need to work this much? John and I had that conversation when Alexander got dropped off during the weekends. John couldn't relax after work, and I had a part-time job on weekdays, so we preferred peaceful weekends with John and Victoria. Our plans would get thrown off when Olivia suddenly showed up to drop off her child. Finally, John and I asked Olivia to minimize the frequency of her visits. We have our plans too, you know. It's troublesome when you keep leaving Alexander here, John remarked. Olivia retorted defensively. Oh, what plans could possibly be more important than my job? John shot back. Why not you consider working when Alexander is at preschool? Then there's no need to leave him here. This infuriated Olivia. How terrible. You people don't care about family at all. It's sad to have relatives like you, Olivia said emotionally, screaming loudly. John and I were taken aback, but Victoria stepped in to mediate. Let it be, John. I enjoy spending time with my grandson, so it's no problem for me. Good on you, Victoria. I knew you'd say that. Alexander seems fond of you, and it's better to leave him with someone we can trust, Olivia commented with a smug look on her face. Since then, the frequency of her dropping off Alexander increased. Lately, she's even been bringing him over from preschool until the evening on weekdays. I was surprised to find Alexander at home when I returned from my part-time job. Sure, it's tough for her to look after the kid alone while James is away on a business trip, but she's definitely taking advantage of us. At this rate, we're practically taking care of Alexander half of the month. When he's with us, we often end up feeding him lunch, snacks, and sometimes even dinner, and Olivia doesn't contribute any money for food or anything. The burden keeps increasing on our end, and it didn't sit well with me. However, Victoria accepts everything, so neither John nor I could say anything further. Amidst all this, an unexpected incident occurred. The weather had been scorching hot, and the moment you step outside, you're dripping with sweat. We were all cautious, and one day, I returned home from my part-time job to find Victoria had collapsed. We immediately called an ambulance, and they confirmed it was heat stroke. Luckily, she fell just before I got home, so she was all right. But she had to be hospitalized for some time. I got so focused on housework, I didn't realize I was overheating. I'm really sorry for worrying you. Victoria apologized. It's okay, Mom. Thankfully, you're safe now. John and I reassured her, chatting with Victoria in her hospital room. We were relieved, but we had planned a family trip set to depart the day after tomorrow. If Mom's in the hospital, the trip's going to be a problem. Yeah, we'll need to cancel, we discussed. As we were discussing this, Victoria suggested, why don't you two go ahead without me? But Mom, we're worried about you. We expressed our concerns. Right, we can't just leave you behind and go, we insisted. You two always help me out, so now's the time to have some alone time as a couple. I'll be fine. I'm in a hospital, after all. Victoria encouraged us. Feeling reassured, we decided to proceed with the trip. It was a waste to pay the cancellation fee for 3 people, and maybe I could change it without having to pay anything if I'm the only one who doesn't want to go. After being encouraged so much, we decided to go on the trip as well. Since John was also on summer vacation, we got into the car early in the morning on the day of the trip and headed for our Ocean View hotel. Excited for a trip as a couple after so long, we stopped at various shops on the way and found some knickknacks that Victoria would like in a chic boutique. While thinking about grabbing some lunch at a cafe, my phone rang. It was Olivia. Sophia, why aren't you answering your phone? I called an hour ago and even sent messages, Olivia questioned. Sorry, we're out at the moment. Must be nice going out while I'm working, huh? Olivia began with her usual passive-aggressive comments. Just when I thought everything was fine, Olivia dropped the bombshell. Look, I left Alexander by the front door. Take him inside and look after him, would you? What? All right, you handle the rest. Wait, hold on a sec. I tried to say more, but she hung up the phone. Despite my attempts to call her back, it seemed she had turned off her phone, probably annoyed with my constant calling. I promptly discussed the situation with John. Despite today not being excessively hot, it was still summer, and leaving someone outside for hours could lead to heat stroke. Moreover, who leaves a 5-year-old alone outside? The problem was that John and I were already far from home, having left early in the morning. Seeing me panic, John calmly said, Relax, let's think this through. I'll call my brother. He's probably off work today. With that, John called James, and fortunately, James picked up quickly. John explained the situation, and James, shocked, provided us with Olivia's parents' contact number. John then called Olivia's parents, explained the situation, and they agreed to pick up Alexander. It turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Olivia's parents lived only about an hour's drive from us, so they could retrieve Alexander without much trouble. Apparently, he was sitting in the shade, looking distressed. Olivia's parents quickly gave him some water and took him to their house. He was safe for now. John and I felt relieved and went on to enjoy our trip. But Olivia turned out to be one exhausting person. We agreed that we needed to give her a piece of our minds. However, what happened next was beyond our expectations. About a week later, Olivia called me, saying, Hey, thanks for watching Alexander for a week. I'll pick him up today. As if she had done nothing wrong. What are you talking about? What do you mean, you got heat stroke and lost your mind? I'm coming to pick up Alexander, I responded. We weren't even home. We were out of state when you said you left Alexander at our doorstep, I added. Olivia was clearly shaken over the phone. Then where is Alexander? He's at your parents' place, I informed her. At my parents'? They've been watching over him, I continued. No way. Olivia abruptly hung up, most likely heading to her parents' place. About an hour later, Olivia showed up, demanding, Where is Alexander? The moment she entered the living room, she was speechless. That was to be expected because there we all were. Olivia's parents, us, Victoria, and even James. Why is everyone here? Olivia seemed confused. Then Olivia's parents spoke up. You really are beyond help. Mom, what's going on all of a sudden? Word is you've been dropping off Alexander at James's parents' way too often, haven't you? Well, I've been busy with work, so it's just on weekends. Olivia tried to excuse herself. That's no excuse, dropping him off every single weekend. Olivia's parents chided. I also heard from James's mother that you've been leaving him there on weekdays too. Olivia's mother and father confronted her like this. Feeling cornered by her own parents, Olivia defended herself. I'm working, you know. It's okay for me to get a little support. Victoria and John are free anyway, Olivia reasoned. James chimed in to counter Olivia's justification. I've been transferring you enough money, haven't I? You even said you needed more, so now I'm sending you $3,000 a month for living expenses, and you're saying that's not enough? Yes, that's right. $3,000 is not enough. Olivia became increasingly defiant. Any reasonable person would think you could live quite comfortably with $3,000 a month for living expenses when it's just you and a small child, James retorted. That's when Victoria sided with Olivia. Why don't you just stop lying? Victoria challenged. What? I'm not lying. You're not really working, are you? Olivia's eyes widened at Victoria's words. I am working. Olivia started to panic under Victoria's scrutiny. Victoria then pulled out an envelope and spread its contents on the table. I hate to say this in front of your parents, but I've had my suspicions about you, so I had an investigation done. It turns out you've been having an affair. You met him often on the weekends, and you left Alexander with us even on weekdays when you could manage the time. Victoria began laying out photos as proof of the affair. Stop. Don't display those pictures like that. Frantic, Olivia tried to hide the pictures. What you've done is a betrayal to all of us. James, who's been working hard on business trips, Sophia and John, who've been caring for Alexander, and most of all, you've betrayed Alexander. Victoria continued, revealing the evidence. It seemed Olivia finally realized the gravity of her actions. Olivia broke down and apologized deeply in front of us. I'm really sorry. Can you find it in your hearts to forgive me? Olivia kept apologizing, but some things can't be fixed that easily. James walked up to Olivia and handed her a piece of paper. These are divorce papers. Let's end our relationship. I don't want a divorce. Shouldn't have had an affair then, James replied sternly. I'm ashamed to say you're my daughter. Stop causing trouble and just agree to the divorce. No way, Olivia protested, but no one in the room was on her side. Eventually, Olivia signed the divorce papers, sealing the end of her marriage with James. James was granted custody of their child. He spoke to his company about the situation and decided to return to the U.S. sooner than planned. Although this cost him a potential promotion, James said life with Alexander is more important, and they're now living together in an apartment near our family home. As for Olivia, she's been sued for alimony by James and her affair partner. She was also disowned by her parents and is working desperately to pay off her monthly installments. Olivia wanted to see Alexander, but he refused. Apparently, Olivia was too absorbed in her phone to take care of him and often neglected his basic needs. Who would want to be involved with someone like that? Turns out Olivia's affair partner was also married, and now his wife is suing her as well. Even worse, he decided not to divorce, leaving Olivia with massive debt and losing everything: her child, James, and her parents. From now on, she'll live a lonely life with most of her earnings going toward alimony payment. But she brought it all on herself. It's the punishment she deserves for her betrayal. Meanwhile, John and I are living happily with Victoria, and since Alexander and James live nearby, we regularly go out for meals or have barbecues in our in-laws' backyard, enjoying quality family time. I plan to continue cherishing this family I love so much and live out my days in happiness. My uncle urged me to peer through the gap in the stairs. My 4-year-old niece tugged at my sleeve as I hesitated. In front of me lay my husband, unconscious, and still on a hospital bed. A week ago, he had been stabbed during a confrontation with a burglar who was still on the run. Upon returning home, my niece's peculiar words echoed in my mind. I decided to check the stairs, and there, in a tiny crevice, I found something bloodied. A shiver ran down my spine in surprise. Could it be someone unexpectedly familiar, possibly the culprit? Fear gripped me. I work in administration at a real estate agency. Last year, I tied the knot with Michael, one of our salesmen, after an office romance. Both of us are 25 years old, and our shared motto was, "We want kids soon." The reason behind this was my sister, and her child Emma, who is incredibly adorable. Whenever I see my 4-year-old niece giggling or pouting, I imagine ourselves as parents. Little Emma possesses a mysterious ability. Aunt Sophia, your ring is on the bookshelf. Whenever I misplaced something, my niece would pinpoint its location, not just once but repeatedly. Even my sister said, when in trouble, ask Emma. Somehow, good things happen. Children are said to see ghosts, but I wonder if there's something more to it. Perhaps our future child will also have special abilities. We dreamt of a family with children. However, our newlywed life didn't go smoothly. Shortly after getting married, we started receiving disturbing letters at home addressed to Michael. The words written on them were chilling: break up and disappear. Despite Michael dismissing it as a malicious prank and filing a police report, the identity of the letter sender remained unknown. Our days were filled with anxiety. One day, James, Michael's colleague, visited the General Affairs Department where I worked. It was unusual for someone from the sales department to visit me. When I approached James, he handed me a piece of paper with the same threatening words, "disappear" and "esser," scribbled on it. I gasped, and James looked serious. As a rising star in the sales department, Michael had made enemies, and it was troubling. James crumpled the paper in his hand and said, "I've known Michael since we joined the company. If anything happens, feel free to consult with me." He smiled kindly, offering support in the face of the mysterious threats we were facing. I never anticipated finding Michael in such a dire situation, but having an ally is reassuring. My sister also visited our home, concerned about us despite the unsettling letters. With support from those around us, we stood strong, determined not to let the harassment defeat us. I resolved to stand by Michael. Little did we know what was about to happen. My sister called me in a panic, urging me to come back immediately. It was a Saturday, and Michael, who was supposed to be home after working overtime, was unconscious. I received her call while attending a friend's wedding. Rushing to the hospital, I found Michael lying pale-faced on the bed. I pleaded with him to wake up, gripping his hand, but he remained motionless. The room echoed with the rhythmic beeping of machines, and tears streamed down my face. I wondered why this was happening. My sister, who had been waiting in the room, comforted me. According to the police, our neighbor had discovered Michael collapsed at home with a stab wound. The neighbor had come to deliver a community newsletter and, as usual, opened our front door without hesitation. Fortunately, this act led to the early discovery of my husband. Given the recent spate of burglaries in the neighborhood, the police suspected it might be the work of the burglar. I believed it was the same person who sent those threatening letters. I fervently explained this to my sister, but she interrupted, insisting that she would handle the explanation to the police. She advised me to take a break. I lamented, thinking that if only I hadn't gone to that wedding, maybe Michael would be safe. I prayed for his recovery, but even after a week, he remained unconscious. The perpetrator was still at large. In the hospital room, I spoke to my husband, connected to numerous tubes. There was no response. No matter how hard I tried to hold back tears, they flowed uncontrollably. It was challenging to stay positive, even when people encouraged me to. Turning around, I found James, who had been checking on Michael every day, offering flowers and treats to comfort me. I apologized for showing him such an embarrassing sight. I hastily wiped away my tears, but James leaned in and reassured me, "Don't worry about it." Just then, An innocent voice came from behind. Aunt Sophia, who's this? I looked back, and my niece Emma stood there, tilting her head curiously. It was her first time visiting. Oh, come on, my sister said curtly to Emma and then greeted James. I apologize for intruding on your family. Well, I'll leave you all to it. With a brief nod to my sister, James placed the flowers down and left the room. Sorry for the sudden visit. Emma insisted on coming to see Michael. My sister looked apologetic, but Emma paid no attention. She stood by the bed, staring intently at Michael's face. Uncle is saying, look into the gap in the stairs. A barge is there. My niece suddenly blurted out, a mysterious statement from behind. A barge? You mean those large ships that transport goods at the harbor? And it's under the stairs. However, my sister insisted that Emma might have something important to say. She was dead serious. As we continued visiting, hours at the hospital passed, and my sister drove me home. Before parting ways, she said, call me if anything happens. But seriously, was there really a gap under the stairs? I retraced my memories, unlocked the front door, and headed toward the staircase. During the incident, Michael had been found collapsed on the stairs, covered in blood. The police had collected evidence and cleaned up. Everything was already in pristine condition. There's a gap at the edge of the bottom step. I noticed a faint trace of red blood. I shone my flashlight inside and saw something reflecting, glinting in the light. I quickly grabbed some tweezers and pulled it out. It turned out to be something unexpected. Isn't this a company badge? In our company, everyone wears a badge with a company logo as an employee ID. The familiar badge was dried and stained with a significant amount of blood. It must have been squeezed into the gap because of the blood. Come to think of it, the police mentioned an unnatural scratch on Michael's fingertip. Could he have pushed something into the gap? The hidden company badge might be a message from Michael indicating who the culprit is. I immediately called my sister. See, something was found after all. Let's go together to report it to the police, I suggested as my sister bustled around on the other end of the phone. I heard my niece's voice. If there's no barge, you need later. It's troublesome for one person who's being a nuisance. What another riddle is this? Another clue related to the case? I leaned forward, asking, but all I heard from the phone was Emma's giggles. Emma had accurately guessed something about the space under the stairs, and I suspected this riddle held a clue to the perpetrator. I stared at the blood-stained company badge in my palm. Michael must have left a crucial clue in his desperate struggle, enduring immense pain until he lost consciousness. I won't let Michael's message go to waste. I'll catch the criminal. I vowed to uncover the cowardly perpetrator and seek revenge. Later, I promptly delivered the badge to the police and went to visit my niece. If there's no barge, you need later. It's troublesome for one person who's being a nuisance. Emma's words intrigued me. I asked her for more details. Hey, Emma, what does it mean when you say I need a barge later? Is it too late? Emma shook her head. No, not like that. I'm still puzzled. When you say it's troublesome for one person who's being a nuisance, are you talking about the number of people? Would 2 people be less of a nuisance? No, that's still too many. It's about being bothersome. My niece wore a smug expression, but the mystery only deepened. I had no idea what she was talking about, and let out a groan. My sister, equally puzzled, hemmed. There must be some meaning to it. Despite her uncertainty, I decided to leave her house and head to a cafe to clear my thoughts. As I sipped my coffee and pondered, a man in a suit sitting at the adjacent table stood up, leaving his smartphone behind. Excuse me, you've forgotten your phone, I called out. He hurried back, relieved, and replied, thank you. It's my work phone, and losing it would mean writing an incident report. At that moment, something clicked in my mind. Finally, the answer to the riddle became clear. I dashed back to my workplace. What followed was a whirlwind of events that revealed the truth. 5 days later, I found myself in a hospital room with my unconscious husband. It's been a while. Why did you take 5 days off work? He asked, stirring from his slumber. I didn't see you at the hospital either. I was worried, James said during his visit, ignoring the bouquet he offered. I looked him straight in the eyes and quietly asked, despite being so close to my husband, why did you stab him? James's face turned pale at my sudden accusation. What are you talking about? Isn't the culprit a burglar? He smiled kindly as always, trying to play it off. I took the blood-stained company badge I found under the stairs out of my pocket and showed it to him. Is that our company's badge? The leer my niece mentioned wasn't a ship at the harbor. It referred to the company badge. We've been receiving harassing letters at home, and my husband hid the company badge to reveal the culprit. The culprit isn't a burglar. It's someone close within the company, I said, looking at James with conviction. You're not seriously suspecting me, are you? After all I've done to care for you. He reached for my hand with a strained smile. I pushed away his hand and showed him a copy of his disciplinary report that I found in HR. Emma's statement about needing a barge later meant needing the letter of apology to the company because he lost his badge. 2 days after my husband was stabbed, he wrote the incident report. Could that be Michael's company badge? His badge was properly at home. I swiftly dismissed his feeble excuse. James clenched his lips in frustration, but he wasn't giving up. You're shaken because of Michael's stabbing. From now on, I'll be there for you in Michael's place. His unfocused eyes drew closer. I deftly sidestepped him and pulled out documents from my bag. It was the drive recorder data from the company car he always used. You came to our place at the time of the incident, even though there are no business partners nearby, right? As the data manager for the company's drive recorders, I quickly analyzed James's movements during the incident. Perhaps he had considered erasing the data later, but the company car's recorder was locked to prevent unauthorized tampering. Did you have feelings for me? I asked, watching James squirm. After questioning other colleagues, it became clear that James had secretly harbored feelings for me all along. Furthermore, it was revealed that James resented Michael for supposedly stealing me away from him. Emma's riddle, it's troublesome for one person who's being a nuisance, meant that if someone already had a spouse, Michael's presence would be an obstacle to their marriage. You held a grudge and harassed us, fearing we might get divorced. That's disgusting. James clenched his fists in anger at my use of the word disgusting. I liked you much more than Michael ever did. I thought scaring you would lead to a breakup. He stomped his feet in frustration. Since the letters alone weren't effective, I decided to put a weapon in your mailbox. I thought it would wake you up in fear. Unfortunately for him, Michael unexpectedly returned home earlier than planned and caught James in the act of pulling out the knife. James's stomping intensified as he arrogantly accused me of being the culprit. Do you realize how terrified Sophia is? He warned me never to come near his wife again. So, in your anger, you've used the knife you were holding to stab my husband. Yeah, that's right. It was all for you. Now I just need to finish him off. James defiantly rushed toward the bed, attempting to strangle Michael. Desperate to protect my husband, I grappled with James. Then, unexpectedly, Michael's weak voice cut through the chaos. Enough already. James froze momentarily at the unexpected interruption, seizing the opportunity. I pushed James with all my strength, and he crashed into the door with a loud thud. The curtain he grabbed tore apart, and the hospital staff rushed in, alarmed by the strange noise echoing through the halls. Call the police? I shouted. The staff gathered around, helping restrain James and making emergency calls. Later, when the police arrived, and I explained everything, they took James into custody. He cried out in desperation. We were so close to being happy. What nonsense are you spouting? There was never any chance of happiness for you. I stared at James, pushing him away with a resolute tone. I've loved you all along. I really have. James continued to sob like a child, but his selfish claims held no sway. The only person I love is my husband. Stay away from me forever, I told him sternly. As James was led away by the police, he muttered. Later, Michael regained consciousness and testified against James, leading to his conviction. James would spend about 7 years behind bars. Michael demanded $115,000 in compensation. Even if James were released, losing his job would likely cause financial hardship. As for me today, I invited my sister and Emma over for lunch with Michael. As we sat around the table, my niece grinned and said, "The new chair isn't just one, it's two." My husband and I exchanged glances. It seems I'm pregnant with twins. I'll need to visit the obstetrician soon. How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Until next time. When I ventured into a town I seldom visited for shopping, I stumbled upon a disconcerting sight. My husband and mother walking arm in arm, sharing intimate kisses without a hint of concern for onlookers. Overwhelmed with shock, I confronted them, only to find them unapologetic, even justifying their actions. Swiftly, I divulged the shocking revelation to my father and opted for a divorce. However, life took an unexpected turn after my father's demise, leading me to cross paths with my mother and ex-husband once again. Years had passed, and as I laid eyes on my mother, her visibly pregnant belly spoke volumes. Catching my gaze, she smirked in triumph. "Ah, you've noticed. There's a little one growing in here. It seems like you've been yearning for this for quite a while, struggling with infertility. Well, we managed to achieve it effortlessly. Now I can finally embrace fatherhood." The decision to part ways had been a wise one. They aimed to hurt me with insults, but to their dismay, I remained impervious to their attempts. "That's quite amusing. The two of you look utterly foolish together," I remarked, laughter bubbling within me. My name is Emily, a 24-year-old office worker, born to young parents entangled in a whirlwind romance. My parents, Linda and Ken, married hastily due to my arrival during their high school years. Initially, their union appeared promising, with my father actively involved in my early years. However, a workplace accident left him physically impaired, triggering a drastic change in my mother's demeanor. As my father struggled with rehabilitation, my mother's indifference and disdain for him became evident. She spewed insults and mockery, creating a strained environment. Despite financial challenges, my father's perseverance allowed him to walk again, but my mother's coldness persisted. Growing up, my mother vented her discontent about my father, creating a rift between them. Our family struggled financially, and my mother's night shifts left me primarily under my father's care. Graduating from high school, my dreams of college were dashed by my mother's insistence that I work to support the family. "I'm sorry, Emily. My condition has forced this life upon you. Don't apologize, Dad. I'm content if it eases your burden." After years of hard work, I married Michael, hoping to create a warm family unlike my parents' strained relationship. However, the joy turned to frustration when conceiving proved elusive, and Michael shifted the blame entirely onto me. "I wanted kids too, but it seems you're the issue. Why can't we have children?" Desperate, I suggested seeking medical advice, but Michael stubbornly blamed me and refused infertility treatments. As my efforts to conceive faltered, suspicions arose about his fidelity, fueled by late-night returns with the scent of perfume lingering on his clothes. The journey that began with familial betrayal had woven into a tale of personal resilience and strength. Further scrutiny of the credit card statements unveiled unexplained expenditures, deepening my suspicions. Direct confrontation with my husband seemed fruitless, anticipating his evasion of the inquiry. The opportune moment to address my concerns emerged during an unexpected visit to a town I rarely frequented for shopping. Spotting my husband, who claimed to be working that day, walking with a woman by his side stirred curiosity. "Is that Michael? He was supposed to be working today," I mused, ready to call out to him. My surprise intensified when I identified the woman accompanying him. It was my mother. Since marrying, I had maintained distance from her, seldom bringing my husband to my parents' house. Observing them discreetly, my astonishment peaked as they held hands and kissed. Unable to contain my shock, I confronted them, chasing after the unexpected duo. Hey, Michael. Mom. Caught off guard, they halted, feigning surprise. My mother attempted to downplay the situation, claiming they merely ran into each other and exchanged pleasantries. Approaching my mother, I discerned a familiar scent, one I had encountered on my husband's clothes after his late-night returns. Reluctantly, I concluded that my mother was his clandestine partner. Don't lie, I saw it. You and Michael kissing. Their denials crumbled under the weight of my revelation. Admitting their deceit, my mother revealed her involvement with Michael. Huh, you must be mistaken. We just happened to bump into each other, that's all. I didn't think we'd be found out so soon, she protested. Their web of deception unraveled further as my husband confessed his preference for older women, specifically naming my mother Linda. Sorry, Emily. I did feel bad for you. But I've liked Michael since we first met, my mother confessed, laying bare the painful betrayal. My mother and husband shamelessly confessed to shocking revelations. It was just a chance encounter, and things unfolded while having tea. I'm young and crave love experiences, my husband admitted unabashedly. With our marriage already strained, talking to Linda intensified my attraction towards her, he confessed. Acknowledging the information, my mother addressed our fertility struggles, adding, Michael desired a boy, and unfortunately, because of you. Unable to comprehend the depths of their betrayal, I confronted them about divulging our private matters to my mother. You talked about our issues with my mom? It's true, isn't it? You blame me for not having kids. Incredibly, my husband had aired our intimate struggles to my mother, portraying himself as the victim. Anger surged within me, realizing the impossibility of sustaining this marriage. You're the worst. Do you even realize what you've done? I yelled at the pair, exhausted by their feeble justifications. I can't help it. Your failure as a wife and a woman led to this, he retorted callously. Well, I don't mean a husband like you. Seeking liberation, I declared, I want a divorce. I've grown tired of your constant excuses and inability to have kids. It'll be a relief to be free of a useless wife like you. Apologizing insincerely, my mother remarked, I didn't mean to, but it seems like taking your precious husband away. My bad. Unmoved by her false remorse, I issued a warning. If I disclose this affair to Dad, your divorce is imminent. Brace yourself. My mother's demeanor shifted at the revelation, but she swiftly regained her composure. Well, there's no concrete evidence of our affair. Your divorce with Michael is your business. I'll divorce when I feel like it. Let's go, she declared, prompting Michael to hastily abandon me. Despite their evident infidelity, my mother displayed no urgency in divorcing my father. In stark contrast, I promptly headed to my parents' house and disclosed everything to my father. So that's what's been happening, huh? I endured that woman for years, thinking it would be better for you to have a mother. I never expected her to be this terrible to her own daughter. My father expressed his disappointment with a bitter glance. I've decided to divorce Michael. I can't stay married after what happened. What about Mom? I inquired. Don't worry. I have a plan. I won't let them have their way, my father assured. Later, Michael sent the completed divorce forms, which I signed, formalizing our separation. My mother, however, never returned home, apparently eloping with Michael. Despite the frustration, my father advised me to let go of them both, and I chose to move on from my ex-husband and my mother. Leaving the apartment I shared with Michael, I returned to my parents' house. Ironically, my father had become adept at taking care of himself, thanks to my mother's lack of assistance. Though the outcome was unfortunate, I found solace in returning to my roots. It's good to be living with you again, Emily. Thank you for coming back, my father expressed his gratitude. A fleeting period of tranquility with my father was abruptly disrupted by his contraction of the prevalent pneumonia, thrusting him into a perilous struggle between life and death. Emily, I've burdened you greatly, and I'm sincerely sorry. Live your life as you see fit. My father, teetering on the edge of consciousness, tightly held my hand and imparted those parting words. I tearfully nodded in response. Despite concerted efforts to combat the illness, his health deteriorated rapidly, leading to his eventual demise. Dad, I can't fathom your sudden departure. I wish I had been there more for you. I lamented while grappling with the preparations for his funeral. In the midst of my grief, an unwelcome pair arrived unannounced at our doorstep. A long time no see. Heard he died. My mother, and to my dismay, my ex-husband Michael stood there, their faces adorned with disagreeable smiles. They intruded with a brazen sense of entitlement. Why are you here? Leave. Who do you think you are? I am his wife. It's only natural for a wife to be present when her husband passes, my mother asserted. How dare you say that after abandoning us for years? Ah, yes, say what you want. Regardless of your objections, I am his wife. That entitles me to the inheritance. Wasn't there insurance? Disgusting. So, you never divorced Dad for this reason. Reflecting on my father's journey, despite lacking formal education and retiring from construction work due to injuries, he ascended to a respected position in a later joined company. His perseverance, honed during his time as a craftsman, endeared him to colleagues. My mother's decision to abstain from divorce now seemed strategic, securing a share of his hard-earned legacy. Now let's discuss the division of property. Knowing him, he wasn't driven by material desires, so I'm aware he saved up quite a sum, my mother suggested, pushing the conversation forward. It was then that I noticed something peculiar about her. She was dressed in maternity clothes, and her belly was notably large. Catching my gaze, she chuckled triumphantly. Oh, you've noticed. Yes, I'm carrying Michael's child. Unlike you, Emily, who couldn't conceive. We succeeded right away. Breaking up with you was truly the best decision. Now I can finally become a father. They proceeded to hurl hurtful insults, attempting to inflict maximum pain. Yet their efforts proved futile. I remained unaffected. That's amusing. Both of you look so foolish together, I laughed, holding my stomach, as they stared dumbfounded. What's so funny? This is just ridiculous. But are you certain that child is truly Michael's? My question irritated Michael, but my mother's composure wavered. Her eyes darted around, revealing a visible unease, though Michael remained oblivious. It's undoubtedly my child. Don't make baseless accusations out of bitterness. Yes, exactly. No need to be bitter. We'll see if it's baseless once you see this. Stepping away, I returned with the document in hand, presenting it to them. What's this all about? What? Why are you so surprised? It can't be that significant. What's the meaning of this? Both were taken aback by the document. A detective agency's investigation report summarizing my mother's social interactions. After my mother eloped with Michael, I coincidentally spotted her in the city. However, she wasn't with Michael, but with a young man I didn't recognize. Following them discreetly, they entered a hotel together. What does this mean? Could it be that Mom is? Having consulted with my father during his lifetime, I opted to investigate my mother's behavior, sensing its potential usefulness. The detective agency's findings confirmed my suspicions. My mother was deeply entangled with a man other than Michael. As Michael read the document with disbelief, he cast accusing glares at my mother standing beside him. What on earth? Were you deceiving me? This is absurd. Emily is lying. The child in my belly is undoubtedly yours. Despite her flustered state, my mother vehemently insisted that the baby was Michael's. Whom do you believe, Emily or me? Oh, that's convenient. Accusing your own mother just because you couldn't have children. What a terrible woman. Michael, swayed by my mother, regained his composure. They dismissed the report as false and resumed blaming me. Believe what you want, but unfortunately, there's concrete evidence. You can come out now. Summoning someone from the next room, a man entered. Who's that? I don't know him. Both were puzzled by the appearance of the unfamiliar man. This is my husband. You wouldn't know him, of course, because after you, I remarried him. His name is Tom. I met him through a friend a year after divorcing Michael and remarried him. How does this man prove anything? Unlike with you, I am genuinely pregnant with this child. So what? Speak plainly. Don't you get it? I couldn't conceive with you, no matter how hard we tried. But with Tom, I got pregnant right away. The implication of my words dawned on Michael, and his eyes widened. You avoided going to the clinic because it was a hassle. But I had tests done, and there were no issues with my fertility. So the problem was with you. That's a lie. But it's strange, isn't it? Supposedly, you have infertility issues, yet my mother is pregnant. Are you sure that baby is yours? Confronted with my question, Michael couldn't argue back and turned his glare towards Linda beside him. Hey, tell me the truth. Ah, fine. You win. You admitted it rather quickly. I thought you'd deny it more. Being with you, Michael, was just a game for me. What do you mean? I was with you because you were Emily's husband, you know, coveting what someone else had. But my true love was another man. I was planning to leave you soon anyway. Stunned by her words, Michael was left without a response. I intended to enjoy this game until I got caught. Well, it doesn't matter whether or not I'm carrying his child. My right to the inheritance remains unchanged. You're still fixated on the inheritance? Unfortunately, you'll have to abandon that notion. What? How many times do I have to say it? I never divorced your father, so I have a right to the inheritance. That's what I've been trying to tell you. There's no such right because you and Dad were divorced long ago. That can't be. Maybe you've forgotten because of your age, but Dad had the divorce papers you already filled out. When I reported my mother's affair to my father, he revealed a completed divorce form. Apparently, he had kept it without filing it because of me. But before he passed away, he used that form to divorce my mother. So, Linda, you won't get a single penny of Dad's estate. Do you understand now? That can't be. At my words, my mother, who had been smug until then, turned pale. Michael continued glaring at her. I'm going home. Realizing her affair was exposed and that she would not receive any inheritance, my mother fled as if running away. Later, my mother did give birth to a boy, but it was clear without even needing a DNA test that he was not Michael's child. I never thought you'd be such a jerk. He abandoned my mother, who failed to secure any inheritance, and disappeared. The man who was my mother's main affair partner also ran away upon learning of her pregnancy, as their relationship was apparently just a casual fling for him. In the end, my mother became a single mother at 40, left to raise a young child on her own without anyone to rely on. She is raising her son on welfare. The care of a small boy at her old age is physically demanding, and she has aged significantly. I once saw my mother with her son from a distance. With increased gray hair, she looked more like a grandmother than a mother. Meanwhile, I gave birth to a healthy girl, and now our family of 3 lives happily. Ironically, the child my mother gave birth to is my half-brother, and he will be in the same grade as my daughter, making our family situation quite complicated. On the anniversary of my father's death, we planned to visit his grave as a family of 3. The betrayal by my ex-husband and mother was painful, but it led me to gain an irreplaceable family. Surely he's watching over us from heaven, right? My father in heaven. He must also be delighted with the birth of his granddaughter. With the love he gave us in our hearts, we vowed to continue walking closely as a family. I am Emily, a 33-year-old office worker who tragically lost my parents in a car accident at the tender age of 8. Initially, my 5-year-old brother, Ethan, and I were taken in by our paternal grandparents. Despite their desperate efforts to raise us, the task proved challenging in their retirement years. 3 years later, I found a new home with my aunt and uncle, who became my adopted parents. The transition was nerve-wracking as I moved away from my grandparents, but my aunt and uncle welcomed me with open arms, treating me as their own. Let's slowly become a real family for us. You are already our daughter, my uncle reassured me, bringing a sense of relief. Although my new home was a 30-minute train ride away from my grandparents, I cherished the hope of visiting my brother when I got older. Being adopted into a family brought unique challenges, but I came to understand that blood relation and a parent-child relationship are not synonymous. Over time and shared experiences, I realized that a mother isn't only someone who gives birth. It's the bonds formed through love and patience. As I navigated through life with my aunt and uncle, I learned that family goes beyond blood ties. While I only shared the truth with close friends, they were surprised to discover that we weren't blood related. A friend's mom once commended my well-adjusted upbringing, but I attributed it to the remarkable love and patience of my adoptive parents. Initially, I struggled to fully open up and was even rebellious at times. Yet my aunt and uncle faced and accepted me with unwavering patience. Now, as an adult, I find myself wanting to give back to them. With gratitude in my heart, I joined my uncle's company, worked diligently, and have now become a supervisor, a small way of expressing my appreciation to the two people I truly consider as my parents. I maintained regular contact with my brother once we both acquired cell phones. Our communication primarily consisted of texts and calls, and I would occasionally visit him. However, after high school, our meetings became less frequent, and he would only respond to my sporadic texts. It's a common occurrence for siblings of different genders to drift apart as they age. Despite the growing distance, my brother thrived in our grandparents' house, remaining kind. Although he may have felt moments of loneliness without parents, he never caused significant worry and matured over time. Eventually, he graduated from college and secured a position in a well-known company, a source of immense pride for our grandparents and me. This year, on his 30th birthday, my brother reached out unexpectedly, expressing his desire for me to meet the woman he was marrying. While I felt a bit upstaged, the news of his impending marriage brought genuine joy. Regretfully, our grandparents, who passed away in the last 2 to 3 years, couldn't be present to celebrate. A few days later, my brother brought his fiancée, Samantha, to our house, where my aunt, uncle, and I reside. "Let me introduce you. This is Samantha, my fiancée," he proudly announced. Reflecting on our journey from losing our parents at a young age to being eventually separated, he expressed warmth in his eyes. Witnessing my brother's happy face made me feel almost maternal towards him. As he introduced Samantha, I greeted her warmly. "I'm his sister, Emily. Thank you for coming today." I couldn't help but express my happiness at seeing my little brother all grown up. My aunt and uncle also welcomed Samantha with smiles and warm greetings. "Congratulations on your engagement. I'm glad to meet Samantha too," I added. Samantha responded briskly with a smile, expressing her gratitude for the warm reception. "No, it's only natural for us to come and greet you." "I also wanted to have a chat with my future sister-in-law," she said, initiating a friendly conversation. I had envisioned her as a sheltered young lady, being the daughter of a company president. However, she appeared quite capable. Ethan, being a gentle and easygoing type, perhaps complimented her well. That day, as we all introduced ourselves and chatted over cake, my aunt and uncle included, she looked directly at me with determined eyes. Amidst various questions about my single status, plans for marriage, and life as the adopted child of the family, she seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me, her future sister-in-law. As we exchanged contact information before parting, she later reached out, suggesting we meet at a cafe. It felt like the beginning of gaining a sister, a somewhat ticklish feeling. However, my cheerful mood took an abrupt turn as we sat down for coffee. Ethan's fiancée expressed a desire to talk with me alone. Anticipating a discussion about my brother, I reassured her that I was open to any complaints or hard-to-say things. To my surprise, that wasn't her concern. With a sigh, she gazed intently at me and said, "I have a favor to ask before we get married." Her choice of words made me apprehensive. "So, you're the adopted child of that couple and single, right?" I confirmed, taken aback by her sudden question. Then she dropped a bombshell. "Ethan is practically a stranger to you now, right? Please don't involve yourself with us after we get married. We won't invite you to the wedding since you're a stranger." Stunned, I blurted out my surprise. Wait, just wait a minute. What is she talking about? I might be a stranger legally to my brother, but we are real siblings. I have no intention of meddling in your married life, but I do want to attend and celebrate your wedding. I've heard that no family is free of problems between daughters-in-law, mothers-in-law, or sisters-in-law. Is she trying to preemptively ward off any potential issues with me, her future sister-in-law? But I have no intention of interfering in my brother's marital life. I gently reassured her that there was no need to be so wary, but she shook her head at my words and spoke again. Please don't misunderstand. I'm saying you're a stranger to us, family yet considered strangers. I couldn't comprehend what she was saying and tilted my head in confusion. Ethan and you have been strangers for a long time, right? You're still unmarried and living with those elderly folks, not even on your own, being an adopted child and single. It would be troubling if you were to rely on us in the future, she declared firmly, delivering such cold words for the sister of her future spouse. Taken aback, I responded, but she continued without concern. It's out of the question for you to rely on us after they pass away. They're still healthy, so please don't say such things. Besides, I have my own job and income. For now, if you were unemployed, I wouldn't have even come to greet you. She interrupted me, glaring. Anyway, we won't invite you to the wedding, and you don't need to invite us to any of your family events either. Just because you're single, don't expect any future support or care from us. I felt a wave of confusion and questioned what she thought of me. Sure, I'm single now, but I have a job and savings. Considering a family member of her future spouse in such a way made me feel dizzy. I tried to express my understanding, but not even being notified about family events seemed too extreme. I understand how you feel, but not even notifying about family events seems too much. I don't think Ethan would agree. Just because we've seen less of each other as adults doesn't mean our family bond is gone, I responded firmly. Well, minimal involvement is unavoidable, I guess, but please gradually distance yourself, she said so nonchalantly, making me feel sad. I'm asking for the sake of our happy marriage. If you refuse, it might complicate our marriage. Remember, it was Ethan who wanted to marry. Think about his happiness, okay? She implied that if I didn't accept this, she might not marry Ethan. It sounded more like a unilateral ultimatum than a request. The proud smile Ethan had just days ago came to mind. While the conditions seemed unreasonable, I didn't want to interfere with my brother's marriage. Faced with her irrational demands, I was left speechless. That night, when I told my aunt and uncle about the day's events, they both found it hard to believe. Understandably so, as she seemed so pleasant when we talked the other day. I was equally shocked. Initially, I thought she didn't want a sister-in-law meddling, but it went beyond that. She insisted that we were strangers and wouldn't hear otherwise. Concerned, my uncle asked, "What will you do?" I replied, "I don't want to ruin Ethan's wedding. I'm not happy about it, but I'll skip it. Once things settle, I'll meet with Ethan alone to celebrate." I see, but if Emily is treated like that, we have no desire to attend either. My aunt nodded in agreement. Seems like the problem is on that young lady's side, isn't it? My uncle said, puzzled, and my uncle nodded with a slight smile. Then came the wedding day with a clear and blue sky. I should have been there to witness my dear brother's special day up close, but it couldn't be helped. My cell phone rang, displaying Samantha's name. I had saved her number affectionately, thinking she'd become my sister-in-law, but now she was a stranger. Feeling no obligation to answer the call, I switched to silent mode, but the calls persisted, like a persistent demon. My aunt and uncle chuckled, guessing who was calling. I wondered what kind of face Samantha, who had bluntly told me I was a stranger, was making. The calls finally stopped, but my phone's call history was filled with Samantha's name. I chuckled at the thought of her being a stalker. There were voicemails, but I didn't feel like listening to them. That afternoon, as my aunt, uncle, and I enjoyed our favorite donuts, the intercom rang insistently. When I went to the door, Samantha, Ethan's fiancée, burst in furiously. "Why aren't you answering your phone? Do you know how many times I called? Aren't you supposed to be getting married today?" she exclaimed. I calmly responded. What do you want at a stranger's house? It's your fault the wedding's ruined. Samantha was taken aback. Excuse me? I smiled back unfazed. You didn't let your uncle and aunt attend because you weren't invited. I haven't done anything. I just didn't go to the wedding, as you told me. That's right, you told me not to come to the wedding because I'm a stranger. Why should I answer a stranger's call? I continued. Samantha questioned, so, why are you here? I replied, well, because your uncle here is the president of the Electrical Industry Association, and someone started saying he wasn't there. Suddenly, Ethan appeared with Samantha. Ethan, sorry. I thought she ran off without listening to me, but she really came here. Sorry, Emily. I didn't know anything. What happened? He asked. Samantha explained. I heard from Samantha that you wouldn't attend. She said you had to meet your boyfriend's parents on this day, and it was hard for you to tell me. I thought that was understandable. I couldn't help but chuckle at the convincing lie for a reason not to attend my brother's wedding. I was impressed. Then today, when attendees noticed our uncle's absence, they started asking why the chief guest wasn't there. Someone close to our uncle mentioned that his daughter was denied attendance, and she's the groom's real sister. Samantha's parents were shocked, saying they knew nothing about it. Relatives and other guests got involved, causing a big commotion. So the wedding turned into chaos, whether it was expected or not. Biting her lip, Samantha glared at me again. Because of you, I was criticized terribly, called inhumane. If you had answered the phone and come to the wedding, things might have been different, you heartless person. Who's heartless here, I wonder? Uncle, who had been observing quietly, stood up and spoke. I decided not to attend on my own. Emily, in fact, wanted me to be there for her brother. I'm a businessman and currently the president of the Electrical Industry Association. I have connections with Ethan's major manufacturing company and your father's component factory, but you've just ruined a good relationship. Your thoughtless actions are going to make your position and even your father's company situation very difficult. By the way, Emily is now a supervisor in our company. She's indispensable, studying technology and management every day. And she's been the secretary of the Electrical Industry Association for 2 years now, building quite a network in the industry. Samantha, who had underestimated me as a poor, troublesome single woman, opened her eyes wide, uttering a ridiculous sound. Indeed, Emily and Ethan lost their real parents when they were young. It's sadder than we can imagine. Uncle's voice was calm yet dignified, but Emily has bravely and positively carved out her life. Judging her foolishly just because she's adopted and single is far more foolish of you, Samantha. Samantha was left speechless, having no words to counter my uncle's argument. Yet again, she lashed out at me, this liar. If your uncle is such an important and wealthy person, you should have told me. Then I would have let you attend the wedding. Enough already. I sharply dismissed her childish behavior. I tried to talk about my work, but you were the one who didn't listen. Remember, we all introduced ourselves on the day we first met. You only remembered that I was single and adopted. People like you, who judge others only by their titles or appearances, end up in situations like this. I'm not living here because I can't afford to live alone. I want to be with my parents, but we are a family now. As a stranger, you should leave. Wait, you need to help me out here. I find myself unfairly portrayed as the villain in this sisterly dispute. Do something? I'm not your sister. I'm a stranger, I corrected her with a smile. I'm the adorable fiancée of your brother, so I'm like a sister, right? Despite my attempts to clarify, the conversation seemed pointless. You should take responsibility for your own words. I'll take back what I said before if you help me smooth things over, she insisted. There's nothing a stranger like me can do. Wait, goodbye then, I stated firmly. She protested, no, come on, let's go, as Ethan reluctantly led his protesting fiancé away. Afterward, Ethan and Samantha's engagement was called off, and she had to deal with the wedding cancellation fees. Despite her complaints, her parents accepted that it was her fault. Despite being the daughter of a president, Her father's company was just a small factory, and maintaining relationships with Ethan's major company and my uncle's electrical industry association was crucial for survival. Due to her actions, her father had to apologize profusely. Samantha, having caused such a mess, was reprimanded and not allowed to return home. She tried to stay with friends, but after the wedding fiasco, they distanced themselves and no one offered help. Ethan came to apologize, reflecting on his choices. She only liked me because I worked for a major company and had no parents to trouble her. The way she treated you like an obstacle, I hate that I couldn't see through her. Ethan slumped, and we all tried to comfort him. It's good that we weren't married yet, and she was pretty. It's not your fault for being deceived by someone who hid her true self. I reassured him. You're too kind. It's a shame about her, but someday you'll find someone who truly cares for you, I said, hopeful. Here, Ethan, your favorite donuts. Let's have some coffee, I suggested, trying to lighten the mood. This incident somehow brought me closer to Ethan, with whom I had lost touch as adults. I realized I had also been neglecting to contact my brother. The initial news of his engagement was the reason for our reunion, so in a way, I'm grateful to her. Watching Ethan and my aunt and uncle talk like a real family, I pondered these thoughts. Friends, lovers, family. Maybe we take those closest to us for granted and forget to show them care. I resolved to cherish my loved ones more. How are your loved ones doing? At my mother's funeral, my mother-in-law wore a grin as she declared, "This house will be inherited by my son." Contemplating which room to take, she remarked, "I wonder if I should choose this one." Politely, I corrected her, stating, "Actually, I'm the one inheriting this house." Unfazed, she retorted, "I know, but isn't it true that a wife's belongings belong to her husband? So, in essence, this house belongs to my son, right?" I sighed, questioning the validity of her claim. Cheerfully, she added, "From now on, let's get along." Hesitating, I asked, "What do you mean by get along?" She declared, "Turning this room into my room." I inquired, "Does that mean we'll be living together?" Confidently, she replied, "Exactly." With such a splendid house, it'd be a waste to have empty rooms when two people can live here, don't you think? Despite my recent loss, my mother-in-law seemed blissfully unaware of my grief. Why would she bring this up now? Can't she see the sadness on my face? It's no time for jokes. This house holds precious memories, built by my respected father and cherished by my late mother. I don't want my unreasonable mother-in-law to live here, and my husband, who doesn't stop at it, is equally at fault. To prevent my precious home from being tainted, I decided to take the initiative before moving out. I am a 42-year-old office worker, having missed the timing for marriage and still being single after turning 40. I had given up on the idea of getting married. However, through an acquaintance's introduction, I met Michael, who is 4 years younger than me, and we were able to get married. My husband is a kind person who prioritizes my opinions. Where should we go for our honeymoon? You mentioned that Europe would be nice, right? I asked. But didn't you say you preferred the Maldives? Let's go to the Maldives. My husband replied. My mom wants to live with us. My dad's health isn't great, and it seems my mom is finding it challenging to manage alone, he explained. I understand that your mom is going through a tough time, but didn't we agree not to live together before we got married? I questioned. You're right. I'll talk to my mom about it. My husband always listens to my whims, and I often feel guilty about it. Meeting a good person is a joy, but there's one regret. My father passed away 3 years before I got married, so I couldn't show him my wedding and reassure him. My father was a strict executive at a small and medium enterprise, and I deeply respected him. Despite the modest size of the company, his income was decent, and our family home was sizable enough to hold a funeral. As I began working as an office employee, I gained a deeper understanding of the challenges of work, which only increased my admiration for my father. And then 2 years after our marriage, my mother also passed away. Even my mom, my husband asked, "Are you okay?" Shouldn't you take a break in the back room? Funerals are generally less commonly held at home, but my mother's funeral was conducted at home. During my mother's funeral, he always looked out for me. Truly, I was fortunate to have met such a good husband. That's when my mother-in-law, Nancy, arrived. My deepest condolences. I sincerely sympathize with you, I replied. Thank you. I hadn't lived together with my mother-in-law, and our interactions had been limited, maintaining a reasonable distance. However, it was during my mother's funeral that I glimpsed her true nature. Following the funeral, my mother-in-law approached me. While it was not uncommon for her to seek me out, her expression carried an oddly gleeful tone. We greatly appreciate your assistance during this funeral. Thanks to you, we were able to smoothly complete the ceremony, she expressed appreciatively. Then, abruptly, she added, the funeral is over now. Isn't it enough with the formalities? I was taken aback, thinking she was initially trying to be considerate of my grief, but it soon became evident that wasn't the case. Commenting on the splendid house my parents had, I replied, wait a moment. Undeterred, she boldly walked into the depths of the house. I protested, oh Mom, this is inconvenient. Some areas are messy. Dismissing my concerns, she declared, don't fuss over details. More importantly, this house will be inherited by my son. I wonder if I should take this room. Hesitating, I tried to clarify. Mom, actually, I'm the one inheriting this house. Smirking, she responded, I know your parents didn't have any other children, right? And isn't a wife's belongings her husband's? So, in essence, this house belongs to my son, doesn't it? I sighed, questioning the validity of her claim. Cheerfully, she added, from now on, let's get along. My hesitation prompted her to confidently declare, I mean turning this room into my room. Concerned, I asked, does that mean we'll be living together? Without hesitation, she replied, exactly. I've decided with such a splendid house. It'd be a waste to have empty rooms when two people can live here. Finally, I won't have to take care of my husband all by myself. Unfortunately, my mother had recently passed away, and yet my mother-in-law was making such statements. I became increasingly angered, wondering why she would joke around at a time like this. Just as my conversation with my mother-in-law seemed to catch my husband's attention, he intervened. Mom, what are you saying? This isn't the right time for such discussions, he scolded. Undeterred, my mother-in-law retorted, why make such a fuss? Firmly, my husband insisted, just leave. He escorted her out of the house, apologizing, sorry, my mom can be unreasonable. Grateful for my dependable husband, I replied, it's fine. Thanks to you for handling it. Yet, in the days that followed, I would come to realize that my husband's perspective on scolding my mother-in-law was subtly different from my own. 10 days after my mother's funeral, as things settled down a bit, we decided to discuss the fate of my family home. Unexpectedly, my husband made a proposal. This apartment is cramped. Shouldn't we move back to my parents' house? I suggested. Agreeing, he added, yeah, you're right. With more belongings and the possibility of having kids, it's better than squeezing into this tiny apartment. Then, hesitantly, he concluded, well then, we should start preparing for the move. I had a pressing matter to discuss about the move. What's the matter? I inquired. He hesitated before revealing. Considering the spacious house and all the empty rooms, I thought maybe my parents could move in with us. Stunned, I questioned, are you suggesting we live together? Recently, I've noticed a change in my husband. Despite thinking he prioritized my opinions, I now wonder if he's merely a yes man or even a pushover. His compliance with my mother-in-law's requests and his suggestion of living together make me question his true stance. Despite my repeated objections to cohabitation, he persists, seemingly prioritizing her over me. Haven't I said it repeatedly? We won't live together, I remind him. He responds, but Mom keeps insisting on it. I counter, during the funeral, you scolded her, didn't you? You stood up for me and opposed cohabitation. He admits, yes, I was upset about her barging into the house. But that doesn't mean I'm entirely against living together. I just thought such an important decision shouldn't be made casually in that setting. It was decisive. Despite nodding in agreement with my stance, he seems more inclined towards my mother-in-law. Moreover, he avoids making definitive decisions, maintaining a certain distance, perhaps unconsciously believing he remains neutral. People like him can be tricky, convincing themselves of their neutrality and decision-making abilities. It's frustrating. I oppose living with someone who barged into my parents' house on the day of the funeral and suggested living in a particular room. I won't change my stance. Please convey this to your mom, I insist. He responds, why? You seem really bothered by it. Fine, I'll let her know. While I had mentally prepared for the possibility of living with my in-laws when we got married, witnessing my mother-in-law's behavior during my mother's funeral changed my perspective. Living together in the cherished home my father built is now unthinkable, especially considering my husband's lack of assertiveness. When he conveyed my opposition to cohabitation, my mother-in-law directly protested by calling me. Why are you opposing cohabitation when there's such a spacious house? You're Michael's wife now, and his father and I are your parents, right? Why such strong opposition to living together with us? I reiterated my decline for cohabitation, explaining my husband's mobility issues and the challenges I face alone. She accused me of abandoning them, prompting me to remind her of the reasons my husband had shared. Despite feeling sorry for my father-in-law's health, I can't ignore the possibility of everything related to him being pushed onto me if we were to live together. If we consider cohabitation a significant improvement in my husband and mother-in-law's mindset is a non-negotiable requirement. A few days after my mother-in-law labeled me heartless, my husband surprised me by rearranging the living room, moving furniture around to create space. Intrigued, I asked, "What are you doing? Is this for storing moving boxes?" He responded, "No. I'm planning to make space for 2 beds here." The mention of 2 beds filled me with dread, and cautiously, I asked, "Are your parents coming to stay?" To my dismay, he replied, "No, they're moving in today, even before the actual move." The realization hit me, despite my objections. My husband and mother-in-law were forcing cohabitation upon me. Why is this happening? I questioned, feeling a growing sense of frustration. He explained their lease is up, so we decided they'd move here without renewing it. It'll be cramped for 4 people, but we're moving soon, right? Just bear with it for a little while. Distressed, I reiterated, that's not what I meant. Why is cohabitation even on the table? I've said it before. I don't want to live with someone who barged into my parents' house on the day of the funeral and suggested living in this room. I'll make sure to talk to Mom. He responded, "We'll be living together from now on, so please get along." Annoyed, I questioned, "Why do you prioritize everything your mom says?" He clarified, "It's not about prioritizing her. I listened to both of your opinions and made a judgment." However, my husband, often a yes man when it came to my mother-in-law, seemed to have fallen for her cohabitation strategy. Unwittingly swayed by her, he believed he was making independent judgments. I used to see him as kind, but when paired with my mother-in-law, he became a handful, forcing me into cohabitation with my in-laws. As we welcomed my in-laws into our cramped apartment, my mother-in-law began complaining about the living conditions. Apologizing for the sudden addition of 2 elderly people, I assured them we would endure until the move. However, my father-in-law, Tony, seemed polite, and it appeared he wouldn't be problematic. But subtle signs indicated he was following my mother-in-law's lead, becoming another yes man. Days later, my mother-in-law requested an errand to buy a medicated patch. Frustrated, I wondered why she made decisions without involving me in the conversation. Minor as it was, it raised concerns about potential future impositions. Living together seemed unsustainable. With my in-laws preparing for their move to my parents' home, I decided to take preemptive action. As my mother-in-law expressed excitement about moving to the spacious house, I initiated behind-the-scenes preparations determined to protect my parents' home. After about 10 uneventful days, I revealed my decision to renounce my inheritance. Handing over the official court approval, I explained, "That house holds immense sentimental value. I couldn't bear the thought of you living there, so I decided to let go of the house, preserving it as a beautiful memory in my heart." My mother-in-law scolded, "What madness possessed you? Even if you were letting it go, you could have sold it for money. Why abandon the house?" I calmly explained, "Even if I sold it, you'd just rely on that money. Next, I thought it'd be clearer if I simply had nothing." She retorted, "We moved out of our previous place for this move, you know. What are you doing? How will you make it up to us?" Firmly, I stood my ground. I've consistently opposed cohabitation, yet without proper discussion, you forced it upon me. So I took a firm stance. Both my husband and mother-in-law seemed stunned upon learning about my renunciation of inheritance. Their faces drained of color, and they were left speechless, their strength sapped. My father-in-law looked bewildered as he observed the two of them. However, I wasn't about to let up. "Michael," I continued, "I've been thinking about getting a divorce. What do you think?" My husband stammered, "Divorce?" My mother-in-law chimed in, "Michael, you should divorce this ridiculous wife immediately." I had expected her immediate demand for divorce, wanting to confirm whether my husband could make an independent decision at this critical moment. "Mom," my husband mumbled. His response was still pending, but my resolve to proceed with the divorce had solidified. "Fine, divorce is the only option," my mother-in-law snapped. My father-in-law interjected, "Michael, it can't be helped. Your mom insists." Sighing, my husband said, "Well, you seem to want a divorce too, and maybe that's for the best." Even in significant decisions, my husband and father-in-law remained yes men to my mother-in-law, and now my husband's words made it sound as if he changed his opinion for my sake. "Very well," I declared, "let's proceed with the divorce. I'll be moving out with minimal belongings." I spent the night at a budget hotel. Urgent matters awaited the next day, so I took half a day off work and headed back to the courthouse. A few days later, my mother-in-law called me, demanding answers. What's going on? It seems that house is becoming yours." Why the sudden outburst? Did you find out through the estate division process? Yes, that house belongs to me. You forged documents and deceived us. I calmly refuted. Why would I forge documents meant for court submission? Those are genuine. Then why is the house becoming yours when you were supposed to renounce the inheritance? I explained. Well, right after that, I promptly withdrew the application. Renouncing an inheritance is difficult once accepted. However, it takes about a month for the renunciation application to be accepted, during which time it can be withdrawn at any point. The documents I showed my in-laws were not acceptance-related. They were from the application stage. I intentionally made them believe I had relinquished the house and confronted them with the prospect of divorce to gauge their reactions and decide my next steps. I didn't expect my mother-in-law's mindset to change, but I hoped my husband would reconsider and express that he didn't want a divorce. If he said he didn't want a divorce, I planned to rethink it and later explain about the house. However, so the house really becomes yours then, since it was acquired before the divorce. It's subject to property division, right? In such cases, you two are supposed to split the money from selling it, don't you? My mother-in-law seemed determined to extract whatever she could, recognizing the house wouldn't be hers. However, I had foreseen this. If that house were jointly acquired, it would indeed be considered shared property. However, it's a unique asset acquired through inheritance, exempt from property division. Unfortunately, specific assets like this aren't eligible for division. She persisted. What about the money that would come to Michael through property division? I calmly responded. We've only been married for a few years, so there's hardly anything substantial. Maybe just the car, although there's still an outstanding loan on it. Accusing me of selfishness, she called me heartless and declared, I'm protecting that house because it holds precious memories of my parents. I don't want people like you living there. If you have any further complaints, please go through a lawyer. After the call with my mother-in-law, the divorce proceedings progressed smoothly. Presumably, she urged my husband to expedite the divorce. Regardless, the divorce was finalized, and I was free from the burden of dealing with my in-laws. I felt a sense of relief, as if I had successfully shielded my father's home from harm. After I moved out, my former in-laws spent some time in the apartment where my ex-husband and I used to live. Despite one less person, the small space likely felt cramped. My former mother-in-law explored new housing options, but their age posed challenges in passing rental application screenings. Consequently, my ex-husband opted to rent a smaller single-family home for them. Although it's smaller, being a house, the rent is likely higher than the apartment. He also assumed the responsibility of supporting his parents. My ex-husband faces a challenging life ahead. Initially excited about moving into the large house my father left behind, my former mother-in-law now settles for a considerably smaller home, likely leaving her disappointed. As for me, I've embarked on a new chapter in the house my parents left me. It radiates warmth, as if my parents are still present. If you enjoyed this story, consider subscribing to the channel. Until next time. Even if you attempt to trouble us, there's hardly any loss on your part, considering it's your funds, useless to poor people with lowly lineage. I sighed as I completed the final check. You're closing your account, right? Please, go ahead, I said with a tone that seemed mocking. Their eyes, filled with clear disdain, made me feel disgusted as they stared at us. I decided it was time to give those who judge others by their upbringing a taste of their own medicine. With that thought, I smiled. My name is Tiffany, a 29-year-old office worker. Currently, I'm living a peaceful life with my mom while working. My dad passed away from an illness when I was young. His chronic illness had worsened early. My father, who was involved in various businesses, was always busy with work, out early and back late. Even so, he treasured his family time, and I have fond memories of playing with him on his days off. Mom and I were initially shocked by Dad's death, but Mom, not wanting me to feel lonely, cherished our time together. Fortunately, when Dad fell ill, he made sure with the former CEO to secure enough funds for our livelihood. Thanks to that, I was able to go to college, and both Dad's and Mom's parents were very supportive, especially my paternal grandparents, who lived nearby, took great care of me when Mom was away at work. We still go back to both sets of grandparents for holidays like Christmas and spend time together. I am who I am today thanks to the support of many people. To give back, I went to a national university and got a job at a major company. I thought about working at the bank my dad was supposed to inherit, but I chose a career I loved. As you're being told, do what you love. I've already handed the bank over, don't worry about it. Thanks to a fulfilling home environment and the freedom to dive into hobbies, I had no interest in romance. But now, at a mature age, many of my friends are married with kids. This led me to think about marriage, and that's when a certain encounter happened. I never imagined this meeting would lead to a major incident. Hey, Tiffany, aren't you interested in love, huh? That was the starting point, a question from a colleague at work. We've been close since our rookie days. You know, I have an acquaintance who's struggling to find a match. He's well-educated and handsome. You're highly educated too, Tiffany. Maybe you'd like to meet him. I've always thought it's a waste for someone as eloquent as you, Tiffany. There are even a few people in the office who are after you. She has a wide network and always shares various stories. She's living with her boyfriend, whom she met at a party, and seems very happy. She's quite concerned about my lack of romantic involvement. I had even consulted her about marriage, leading to this arrangement. A few days later, I agreed to meet a man named Yves. The rendezvous was at a cafe, and as I waited nervously, a man approached me. Tiffany? Ah, yes, nice to meet you. You're Yves, right? I said, feeling a bit anxious. Yes, thank you for today. Yosef's expression was blank as he looked me over. It felt like he was sizing me up, and I was a bit taken aback. Then, taking a seat opposite me, he quickly started the conversation. "What do you do for work, Tiffany?" he inquired. "I work in sales at a company. I've always enjoyed interacting with people and making use of my opinions, which is why I chose sales. I find it fulfilling, and I love the moments when customers are happy with their purchases," I replied, trying to ease the tension. "What's the name of your company?" he asked. I told him the name of my company. Upon hearing it, Is paused for a moment, then smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile, more like one of satisfaction. "My company is quite a large enterprise with good performance. We're well trusted by our customers," he said, his tone slightly arrogant. Since he asked, I decided to return the question. "What do you do, Yes?" At my question, Is snorted with pride and began to boast. "I work at Sunrise Bank as a department head. Sunrise Bank is a really big bank, you know. The work is tough, not something ordinary people can handle. But since my dad is the CEO and I'm the successor, it's different for me." I felt a stir in my chest at Yosef's words. I was expecting a normal response, but Yosef's aggressively toned words made me feel uncomfortable. Indeed, Sunrise Bank is a major bank. I knew about Sunrise Bank due to a certain incident, but I was surprised to learn that East worked there as a department head. Wow, that's impressive. Sunrise Bank is a big place, isn't it? I flattered Yist on purpose. I saw no need to be rude, and though I thought this would probably be our last meeting, I figured it was better to be nice. Pleased with my flattery, Yist continued to boast about himself. Honestly, talking to him was painful. He did listen to me occasionally, but always turned the conversation back to himself, even making outrageous comments about his lack of romantic prospects. I'm quite popular, you know, but it's always people who don't match my family background or education level that come to me. I thought the problem might be his attitude, but I had already decided not to meet him again after informing my friend. As time passed, he still looked satisfied and made a suggestion. "I'd really like to meet your parents, huh? But we just met today. That's exactly why parents' excellence is important, especially if we're going to date, right?" Inside, I screamed. I had no intention of dating him, but he seemed oblivious to my discomfort and kept pushing forward. "When are your parents in? Are you available?" "Ah, I'll have to discuss it with my mom." What about your dad?" As Yeast pressed on, I felt a growing sense of disgust, but couldn't find the strength to cut him off. My dad passed away when I was young." At my words, Yeast narrowed his eyes. Suddenly, waiting for him to speak, Yeast just said, "I see," and fell silent, pondering. "Well, send me a date that works for you later. I'll adjust my schedule." No, thank you. Should we leave then?" Before I could finish, Yeast stood up. It felt like talking to someone from a different world, despite my reluctance. I had given him my contact information and even discussed meeting our parents. His disdainful look upon hearing about my father's absence bothered me. In the end, we agreed to meet again with our parents. When I explained this to Mom, she smiled. "Riley, maybe you were just nervous because you haven't dated before," she said reassuringly. Maybe, but the way he spoke was weird. Well, his parents will be there, right? Just say no if it doesn't feel right. "I'll be there too," I replied, feeling guilty. "Thanks, Mom. Sorry for dragging you into this," I apologized. Mom laughed heartily. "It's okay. No need for you to feel bad. Besides, I'm curious about Sunrise Bank, so let's see how it goes." So, Hiss and I arranged a family meeting. At that time, I had no idea Hiss had planned the meeting for such a shocking purpose. On the day of the meeting, we arrived at the place Hiss had chosen. It was a fancy restaurant. "It's a big place, isn't it?" I remarked as we entered. "Yes, it is," Mom agreed. Inside, our table was ready, but Hiss hadn't arrived yet. We entered and waited, and shortly after the scheduled time, Hiss and his family arrived. "Sorry we're late. The traffic was terrible." "Nice to meet you. Thank you for today." Yosef's family unapologetically took their seats. Irritated but not wanting to start a fight, I initiated the family meeting. After some time, Yosef's mom, Morgan, with a sly smile, spoke up. So, where is your father? Is he coming later? Huh? She inquired, looking around. I looked at Yes, but he just smirked dismissively and said nothing. I had already told him my dad was deceased. Morgan acted as if she didn't know, despite having agreed to meet our families. Mom quickly responded, in my stead, my husband passed away from illness when Tiffany was young. So today, I'm here as her mother, Mom responded with a calm smile. In contrast, Morgan raised her voice in an exaggerated manner. Oh my, Tiffany is from a single-parent family. Her words took me aback. Even after explaining that my father had passed away from illness, her tone clearly carried malice. Being from a single-parent family, life must be quite hard, huh? But she graduated from a public university. That's commendable, right? Really, but still, being from a single-parent family, wouldn't dating her be complicated? His family's conversation left Mom and me utterly dumbfounded. Despite being present, they spoke so disrespectfully, mocking us as if being from a single-parent family was something bad. Such words weren't suitable for a first meeting. Angered, I retorted in a low voice, excuse me, but after Dad passed away, Mom raised me with great care. I owe my current life to her. And isn't it rude to speak about someone like that when you've just met, Tiffany? However, Morgan burst out laughing at my words. Rude, isn't it? More absurd for the daughter of a single parent to think about marrying into a high-class family. I'm not really into strong-willed women. This is pointless. There's no getting through to them. Thinking this, I just stared at them in disbelief. I had high hopes since she works at a major company. Well, you'll eventually carry on Sunrise Bank, so maybe she's not quite at your level. As they hurled more insults, I felt no need to listen anymore. Trembling with anger, Mom glared at them. Did you invite us here today just to look down on us? I've heard from Tiffany about the other day. You're enjoying berating us for being a single-parent family, aren't you? Her words took me aback. Even after explaining that my father had passed away from illness, her tone clearly carried malice. Being from a single-parent family, life must be quite hard, huh? But she graduated from a public university. That's commendable, right? Really, but still, being from a single-parent family, wouldn't dating her be complicated? His family's conversation left Mom and me utterly dumbfounded. Despite being present, they spoke so disrespectfully, mocking us as if being from a single-parent family was something bad. Such words weren't suitable for a first meeting. Angered, I retorted in a low voice, excuse me, but after Dad passed away, Mom raised me with great care. I owe my current life to her. And isn't it rude to speak about someone like that when you just met, Tiffany? However, Morgan burst out laughing at my words. Rude, isn't it? More absurd for the daughter of a single parent to think about marrying into a high-class family. I'm not really into strong-willed women. This is pointless. There's no getting through to them. Thinking this, I just stared at them in disbelief. I had high hopes since she works at a major company. Well, you'll eventually carry on Sunrise Bank. So maybe she's not quite at your level. As they hurled more insults, I felt no need to listen anymore. Trembling with anger, Mom glared at them. Did you invite us here today just to look down on us? I've heard from Tiffany about the other day. You're enjoying berating us for being a single-parent family, aren't you? It was the first time I heard her speak so sternly. Please stop with the accusations. It was just a little teasing, right? No one feels good being mocked, and all your remarks are condescending. We have no intention of listening to this any further. E's family looked displeased at Mom's clear statement. Presumptuous for commoners, huh? Indeed, that may be the case. But this has made up my mind. E's family looked briefly surprised at Mom's words, then burst into laughter. They seemed to be thinking, what can you possibly do? Mom sighed and began to speak. Actually, we have funds deposited with your bank, but we don't wish to entrust them to people like you. Oh, really? But we don't know your name, so it can't be much, right? It's probably insignificant. That's right. Even if you try to trouble us with your fun, it won't really affect us. Low-class poor people are not needed. I realized that even Mom's last attempt at reconciliation was in vain. But they continued to speak disdainfully, unaware. I sighed and made the final confirmation. We're closing our account. Okay, go ahead. Yosef's family responded with mocking tones and clearly disdainful expressions as they looked at us. I thought to myself, let's make those who judge others by their background suffer a bit. I smiled at the thought. Is that so? Then we will proceed as such. And please consider this meeting never happened, Yosef's family declared. Of course, I replied calmly, knowing we had no intention of marrying into a family with such prejudices. Well then, we will take our leave now, Mom, and I stood up. Oh, don't worry about today's bill. It's too expensive for you, they remarked. Is that so? Well then, with that, our family meeting ended. Later, I made a phone call. Weeks later, my mobile phone was flooded with calls from Mias. Of course, I had anticipated this and had no intention of answering. It was their own responsibility. I immediately blocked the number. A few days later, I received a call from Grandpa Kyle. Summoned by Kyle, Mom and I headed to Sunrise Bank in the meeting room. Ye's family, looking pale, was present. As soon as they saw us, Morgan stood up and rushed over to bow deeply. I am extremely sorry for what happened, she said. I didn't reply to Morgan's words, just smiled and began to speak. What exactly are you apologizing for? At my words, Morgan bit her lip hard, trembling with anger. That's understandable. There are too many things for which they should apologize. That's probably why she's feeling so frustrated. This whole situation started because I said we would close our account. That day, our account wasn't particularly large. Closing it wouldn't have caused much damage. But Kyle's case was different. Kyle managed the inheritance left by my dad at Sunrise Bank for our benefit. Kyle also had his own account there. If all accounts, including Kyle's and my dad's inheritance, were closed, it would total about $7,000 million. In other words, their disrespect decided the closure. And importantly, Kyle is the former CEO of the bank. Dad was supposed to take over the bank but passed away young, so the position went to Scott. I didn't know that Tiffany was related to the former CEO, Scott. Looking anxious, Yosef pleaded as if making an excuse. But that's no excuse. Even if they didn't know, their prejudice against our family is their own fault. You mean, if we were relatives, you would have treated us differently? Dad interjected. Hey, don't talk to Dad like that. It's your fault for not telling us from the start that your grandpa was the former CEO. I don't have any obligation to tell a stranger like you that. Besides, you were the one who started it and made fun of us, remember? I countered, causing Yosef to narrow his eyes in frustration. You insulted me knowing I was from a single-parent family. When I said I would transfer the bank due to insecurity, you told us to go ahead. We just did as we were told. But it's just that it may be just that for you. But have you ever thought about the feelings of someone whose family has been insulted? Silence fell. Morgan was trembling, looking hopeless, and Scott was hanging his head. But Yosef still seemed unconvinced, his face full of dissatisfaction. Getting all high and mighty just because people talk to you. Yosef remains unrepentant. At that moment, the door to the conference room opened and Kyle appeared. Seeing Kyle, Yosef's tone grew defiant, and Morgan turned even paler. Frozen in place, only Yosef glared at me. Even after giving you a chance to reflect, you're still only thinking about yourselves, Kyle said, his tone stern. It's not my fault. It's her. Watch your words. If you continue, you'll end up even more miserable. Yosef, silenced by Kyle's words, glared at me again. Then, as if resigned, he burst out, no way. Who would think a single parent's relative was the former CEO? You knew I was the future CEO and came to the family meeting just to mock us. Yosef, be quiet. Kyle glared sternly, causing Yosef to breathe heavily. Future CEO, huh? Kyle then turned his gaze to Scott, who shrunk even more under Kyle's stare. I understand wanting to leave the bank to your son, but now that I know his mindset, it's impossible for him to continue as CEO. That's ridiculous, Scott started to retort, but sat down again under Kyle's gaze. You still don't understand that your attitude is the problem. Though I'm retired, the board will decide. If you have something to say it to them. Remember, we recorded the previous conversation, and this one. Don't forget that the voice recorder will serve as evidence. I took out a voice recorder in front of the three and pressed play. The recorder started playing back our conversation from the other day. How dare you prepare something like that? It's unfair, Yosef exclaimed. It was just a precaution, but remember, you forced me into this situation. I countered. Yosef had nothing to say in return, and their faces turned pale. Thank you, we'll handle it from here, they said. So Mom and I left. Ultimately, Kyle didn't transfer the funds, at least not officially. Scott was removed from his CEO position, and Yosef was demoted. Seemingly unable to handle the blow to his pride, Yosef resigned voluntarily. Kyle's influence in the financial industry meant Yosef would struggle to find work in the same field again. Whether Scott knew this or not, he seemed determined to work until retirement, but Kyle said it would be tough for him both mentally and physically. Morgan, who used to wield power as the CEO's wife, apparently started part-time work to maintain her lifestyle. But her character likely made it hard for her to keep a job. I'm really sorry, I said. It's okay. You didn't know, right? Mom replied. I only shared what happened with a friend who introduced me to Yosef. She just heard about him through someone else and wasn't at fault. Mom was initially concerned about being a single parent, but I'm happy now and can live thanks to the support I've received. When I told her that, she smiled and said thank you. After everything was taken care of, Kyle told us to come over to his house again sometime. I'm really grateful for Kyle's help in resolving the situation. He was tough, but I'm happy now, so it's okay. I have some good news for you, Mom said one day. Really? It's not about dating again, is it? I teased. It's a friend of my boyfriend this time. He's definitely a good guy. I'm not interested in dating right now, but I'm satisfied with my current life. I want to keep cherishing those who support me. And maybe someday I'll meet someone I really click with.